He's made some good books on Amazon. Yeah, Tim, welcome to the show again.
Hey,
What do you
brother.
have tonight?
Good to see you, Andy.
And you too, yeah. We're getting that bad weather now. It's October. Next week is the clocks go a funny way. I never know which way, October and March. I don't even know why
Yeah, yeah,
UK
yeah. They
has the
swing
clocks.
they swing the clocks back an hour.
Is that
Uh,
some kind of weird thing or is it just
it's
normal?
it's daylight savings, and so they do that every October, and then they swing it forward in March.
Yeah, it's
So
strange though because
fall
no other
back,
country
spring
does that.
forward. Just remember, fall back, spring forward, and that explains the daylight savings time differential.
Yeah, so next week I'll probably forget what time it is.
Yeah, there's usually some kind of mess that's created because people forget about the time being turned back and they're late for work or something like this.
It's probably more likely to be midday next week than for you. I can't remember. It gets too complicated. It's what we're discussing today then.
Well, I saw that the UN has called for the ethnic cleansing of white British.
The
And
United Nations.
yeah,
Wow.
they've
That's a bit
endorsed
bold, eh?
they've endorsed it. Well, they're satanic, right? The Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, they're all there, thick as thieves. The Illuminati bloodline, satanic Luciferian families.
Tell us more.
So you've heard of the Kalargi plan?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, well, the extermination of white people is basically what it comes down to, the replacement of the white population of Europe and North America. Uh, Presumably also Australia, New Zealand. Yeah.
Wow.
In New Zealand, the property costs for rental and for mortgages and just everything to do with property, everything to do with real estate, it's gone through the roof and they can't afford it. So a lot of New Zealanders are leaving New Zealand. So there's a white exodus from New Zealand, and it's going to happen. It's a population that will be replaced.
Well, there we go. I found something.
Yeah.
Anyway, you carry on. There's just something to put on the screen.
What were you going to share with us, Andy?
Yeah, just waiting for it to come on.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, it's a video that I can't. Oh yeah, yes I can. Hang on. No, I can't. No, I can't extract the photograph. It's a shame that.
Oh.
Yeah, no, it's on the YouTube video, but I can't show it. So they want to murder us all. Yeah, tell us more then.
Did you see that there's been more revelations concerning Princess Diana and what took place with the car accident and so forth?
Yeah, I seem to remember a YouTube video recently, but I can't remember now what happened.
Well, it's alleged that she witnessed a ritual at Balmoral Castle. There's a basement location in the castle where they hold these satanic rituals, and she is alleged to have witnessed one of these, and she saw a rather strange phenomenon. The participants did not look human, shall we say. And she was at a dinner and found that the same weird phenomenon took place at this royal dinner, where many of the guests did not appear to have human countenances, human eyes. Yeah, the way it was described, it sounds like they were reptilian in nature. Anyway, she did anticipate that her days were numbered, and she predicted that she was going to be eliminated in a car accident. If she were murdered, why do you think that happened, Andy? What do you think the motive was? There's probably, presumably, more than one motive, but what do you think is the main reason for her murder?
She probably witnessed something very sinister, and if she'd told anybody, they would obviously have gone to jail or even worse. She witnessed something really bad, I think.
Okay, do you think it had to do with what I've just described? Satanic ritual abuse?
Probably not that, no. I think it's down the children route. She probably witnessed something bad happen to children.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Satanic ritual abuse of a child, presumably, in Balmoral Castle in the cellar crypt or the cellar tunnels or wherever this type of ritual is performed in that castle.
Okay, I've caught up now. Yeah, definitely. They both go hand in hand then.
Well, allegedly, what happens is these Luciferian bloodlines participate in these rituals in aristocratic residences, whether they be castles or manor homes for the aristocratic elite. They have these rituals, and children are abducted and forced to participate in the rituals. And the priest or priestess that's in charge of this horrible satanic ritual is trained in being able to keep the child conscious and alive, even though they are subjected to torture of the most horrific kind, and they are screaming and in agony for hours, but they manage to keep them alive and conscious. And the adrenaline levels in their blood will naturally be extremely high, and so it produces what they wish to harvest, which is called adrenochrome, which is collected in the blood after many, many hours of this horrible, horrendous torture. And it creates a fight or flight type of response in the child, and they get adrenaline rushes, which, gradually increase in the blood supply. And then, so when the moment comes when the child is to be killed, they then sink their teeth into the jugular vein of the child and drink the blood. The person in the group that is selected to be the first to harvest the adrenochrome. And then the blood is shared, rich in adrenochrome, of course, and it increases their vitality, certainly their libido greatly, and they end up having a satanic orgy with their heightened sexual appetite, and just horrific. And these rituals take place in key locations around the world, and there's this child trafficking activity that they are responsible for. And of course, with Mel Gibson's film Sound of Freedom, there's an attempt made to expose this type of horrible SRA and pedophilia, child trafficking ring activity that's going on. You've had some contact with a man there that's tried to rescue some of these children, and he ended up, unfortunately, being indicted himself. You want to tell that story, Andy?
Oh, yeah, that was William Wong, wasn't it?
Yeah, William Wong.
Yeah, I think he was jailed for tried to rescue a young girl. He was jailed for 17 years in February 22. So roughly, I just got this article up. It claims that kidnappers claimed about SRA at child abuse. I'll remain online after he was jailed for 17 years. So William Wong was among a gang who kidnapped the child on Anglesey, North Wales, believing the infant had been the victim of SRA. A judge said his online blogs and posts should be taken down, but Wong's views are still available on YouTube. North Wales Police, it was seeking clarification from the judge, and then they'll act. The court heard that one of them, 51, snatched a child from the street outside their home, while William Wong threatened the child's foster mother with a knife. I don't think he would have done that. He's not that kind of character. He may be passionate about what he believes in, but he wouldn't threaten anyone with a knife. Anyway, Wong was given 17 years, pleaded guilty to conspiracy to kidnap. to see him if they give his views out.
It seems to me that he would
But they
only
don't.
he would
They
only
didn't.
confess to kidnapping in order to plea bargain for a reduced prison sentence.
17 years though for kidnap or attempted kidnap is very, very big considering murder you can get 15 years. That don't make no sense.
Well, it seems strange to me that he would confess to kidnapping unless there was some benefit in terms of plea bargaining.
I mean, well, I don't know if that's good or bad because they could have sentenced him to a mad hospital. So that might have been worse, actually. But who knows? He was definitely not bonkers, put it that way.
No.
I mean, I had him on several shows,
Yep.
and he was just clear about it really does happen, and the state try and cover it up because they don't want to cause hysteria.
Well, that's the excuse, but they cover it up because many of the elite are in the police services and in the justice system. The satanic elite is all pervasive. I mean, in UK, I think it's 1 in 10 adult males is a Freemason, and Freemasonry is deeply involved in all of this, whether it's child trafficking or satanic ritual abuse. Credo Mutwa, who was interviewed by David Icke, went on at considerable length to explain to David a satanic ritual abuse case that he witnessed in a Masonic temple. He was somehow snuck into the Masonic temple and was hiding and witnessed this SRA incident that was taking place. And the way he described it is that the victim, a virgin child, male or female, doesn't matter, they use both genders in these rituals, and they tell the child that they are scheduled to die, and they appear to be giving the child a chance to escape, but of course there is no escape. So in the mad panic and the flight and fight mode that the child's sympathetic nervous system would naturally trigger, they run and they try to escape, and of course there is no escape. They're captured and they're brought to the altar table, which serves as the place of sacrifice. They are restrained with restraints, of course, and there's surely no chance of getting out of this one. They can't run, they're restrained. And then the ritual commences, and I've already described the horrendous torture and agony that the poor young thing is put through to increase the levels of adrenochrome in the blood. It's just so pernicious and indescribably evil. Anyway,
It's not good.
no, by no means.
And I just found out that one of the three people, there was a lady William Wong and another man.
Yes.
The man died this year in February because he spent 2 years in prison, and he couldn't cope anymore, so he committed suicide.
Oh dear.
Because there was all
prison
sentenced
cell,
to
what did he do?
17 years.
Did he hang himself in his prison cell? What happened?
Probably something like that. They didn't say.
Horrific.
And he was a father of two, I think, as well.
Well, it's a sad situation. If you leave it to the police, oftentimes you will never see justice because there will be obstruction of justice within the police investigation. They may get orders from above to call off the investigation or some form of obstruction. I know that in Toronto, the case involving Paul Bernardo involved a lot of obstruction of justice. Apparently, he was meeting in a bar in Scarborough regularly with Masonic police. And there were, Masonic rings on their hands that showed that they were Masons. And there was evidence that the Metropolitan Toronto Police Force was obstructing justice. The investigation into the Scarborough rapist, as he was originally called, was being obstructed, presumably by these Masonic police. Bernardo was himself a Mason. And I believe that the snuff films he was making with his wife involving the abduction of these virgin girls was a satanic ritual abuse filmed for the Satanists, or shall I say Luciferians, who were in the Ontario legislature. That is the allegation made by Robert O'Driscoll. Professor Robert O'Driscoll wrote a trilogy of books with a colleague, and one of them was called New World Order Corruption in Canada. And in that book, which was impounded by Prime Minister Mulroney, who's thick as thieves involved in all of that stuff, and was no doubt trying to cover it up. The book was banned when he was the Prime Minister, and at that time, Bob Rae was the Premier of the province of Ontario, and he imposed a media blackout on the Bernardo trial. And O'Driscoll, Robert O'Driscoll, the professor, alleges that Bob Rae was Paul Bernardo's illegitimate father. Would you be surprised? I wouldn't.
Yeah, there was also, for them non-believers, there was a satanic ritual abuse case with somebody else I've had on the radio, funnily enough, and he was a victim. His name's Dave Sharp, and he was saying how he was trafficked around Scotland and England and Ireland to different priests.
Is that right?
This all came out at a child abuse inquiry in 2019, 2020, when Joanne actually attended the same inquiry. So yeah, it's satanic ritual abuse is real.
Oh, sure, it's real.
Proving it. No, not proving it. Getting people to believe it, that's the word. There's a woman that I used to know as well. I didn't even realise she was involved in it until recently. Um, and she was involved in it, and
Well,
they're
look at
trying to
the
get her, they're
look at
trying
the
to get her on medication because she's a bit
right.
bonkers just because she talks about how things happened, you know. It's mad, it really is.
Well, it is. It would sound like the ravings of a crazy individual to have them recount, especially in an excitable way, what had occurred. I mean, it sounds out of this world. It sounds just bonkers. Like, who could possibly do anything that sinister? It couldn't be real. This person's clearly mentally ill. They've got delusions. This is delusional. That would be the natural conclusion that a lot of people would reach because they're just not able to countenance how something this sinister could actually go on.
Yeah, I think the authorities, you know,
Yeah.
they want to diminish, you know, the fact that SRA exists. But even if you didn't call it SRA, it's still something very serious that's happened to people. And it doesn't matter what you call it, it happened. And, you know, some people say that they see or believe priests were drinking blood and they believe this, they believe that. I mean, that's got to be real. And then you got some dickhead, his name was French, forgot his name now. He said it was all related to false memory syndrome.
Right. I've heard that allegation being made. Yeah, that's a common ploy they use to try to discount the claims made by the victims.
I mean, the way Joanne explained her injuries, you know,
Mm-hmm.
when she was a child,
Mm-hmm.
it involved like pool cues or sticks inserted in places you shouldn't insert them when you're a child. You know, it doesn't matter if it's a man or woman. You know, that is some kind of satanic thing because, well, we can't be sure, but I'm told that there was photographs being taken, and I guess if you shared photographs of what happened, that's a bit satanic, isn't it? Or at least unusual. So yeah, it does exist. It doesn't matter what you call it. It's still
Oh, I
spooky.
remember reading accounts of how Muammar Gaddafi was murdered, and I believe the allegation was it was made under the orders of Hillary Clinton, and I would believe it at the drop of a hat because I believe she's one of the most evil people in America, maybe even in the world. And I do believe she's a Satanist. I think her husband, Bill, is also a Satanist. I think they're probably Luciferian caste in the whole satanic network, which is the highest caste. And she has made some really shocking statements over the years. And I think that the trail of evidence that leads to Bill and Hillary Clinton in terms of homicide investigations is shocking. There's just so many murders that are traceable back to this couple. But Muammar Gaddafi was, yeah, I don't know what instrument they used to sodomize him with, but yeah, he was tortured in the most grievous sexual assault terms when he was murdered, according to the accounts I've read, anyway. And he,
Is that the phone?
yeah, it's Mari's phone.
Because Maggie had a Maggie
We have
Tuttle had
another.
a,
What? Sorry, go ahead, Andy. What?
Maggie Tuttle had a conference in 2016, and she was speaking about SRA at the time.
Well, it was Maggie that spearheaded the effort to have me write 21st century Lebensborn, children screaming to be heard. So you want to tell the listeners what you know about Maggie and how you came to know about her, career and her effort to expose the child abuse problem. And
Yeah, we'll do.
it was
But
it, it, it was it was a strong effort to expose the abuse through the care system. Wasn't that her motivation? And that's why she linked it to the Lebensborn program in Nazi Germany.
yeah, well, she was originally fighting for a grandchild. She was looking after the grandchild, and social workers got involved, and they wanted him to go to his, not his dad. Anyway, one of the family members, and Maggie didn't like it, and yeah, so she started fighting with social workers legally, on paper, and then eventually she was just exposing them at conferences. Now she thinks, well, it's very similar, isn't it? What if I could find that particular thing you mentioned, Lebensborn? Um, a minute.
Well, I mean, the care system is really a double entendre. It's a care from a satanic care point of view. I
Yeah,
reference Bohemian Grove, where the cremation of care ceremony is held, where they have presumably an effigy of a child, so they claim, maybe an actual child, for all I know. And then there's this horrific scream that echoes through the woods that is meant allegedly to emulate an actual satanic ritual killing. But of course, it's claimed that it's just a mock ritual called cremation of care. And Alex Jones filmed one of these ceremonies taking place before a great horned owl, which is claimed to be a representation of the demon god of the ancient world, Moloch. So when they talk about the care system, they mean it in a double entendre sense, that ostensibly on the surface level, it seems to be a care system designed to take children into custody that are being abused or are not properly cared for by their parents, and they're taken into the care system. That's the surface story that of course we're meant to believe. But on a deeper level, it's actually a abduction of children for the purpose of mistreatment in the care system through SRA and other forms of abuse.
Yeah, it's a multi-million-pound industry, and it still is. And there's not one judge, not many judges anyway, probably still not one, where you you go up as a family member, give your argument in your defence,
Yeah.
and they believe you. They believe the social workers, even if, I mean, what they've done the last 20 years is, a child goes there, he's got no bruises, there's no cuts, they're fed properly, they've got clothes on that are good.
Yeah.
But what they do is, because let's say your mum was in care when she was younger and she was abused, or your dad's an alcoholic, or your auntie's a murderer, so they take the children into care for the future risk of emotional harm, not a current risk. No one's committed a crime because it is crime without a punishment. This system. So yeah, it's $1 million industry. So everyone gains: judges, foster carers, social workers, and everybody loses. The families, the kids, and of course, if you keep children in care for long enough, they grow very bitter against their mum and dad when they're older. I'll say no more on that one.
Well, yeah, they're poisoned against their parents, and presumably told all kinds of horrible things about their parents. It's like a kind of brainwashing activity, while they're in custody in the care system, right?
Absolutely. And because if you get a very nasty social worker,
Yeah.
because most of them are sort of average, I'd say, and the foster carers are average. All they're interested in is their money, and But if you get a very nasty one, they can put all sorts of rubbish into the kids' heads that's not true.
Right.
Yeah, because originally I went into this. Well, I don't know if it's a rabbit hole, but it was a horrible situation with social workers. They accuse people of this, they accuse you of that, and I mean, just because I actually teamed up with a lovely lady called Christina England, and she wrote a good article about our situation. I mean, all I did was tell her, the situation, this is happening, what led up to that behaviour. Well, we went and got a jab for them and so on and so on. I mean, I do believe it was vaccine-induced injury myself. Can never prove it. And that's how our story began. And that's why we met Maggie, because we're victims of the state.
Okay, this woman, what did you say her name was? Christina England?
Yeah, Christina England.
Was she a nurse?
No, she was a writer, but she also had similar problems with the state because she had two boys with autism, and they tried to give her rubbish as well.
So they were injured by vaccines, and this caused their autism. That's what you're alleging, right?
Yeah, and of course, people like Andy Wakefield agreed.
Yeah, Andrew Wakefield has been very a strong advocate of the view that vaccines have caused the autism problem.
I'll put Christina's book on display, and it basically, this is about Munchausen's by proxy originally, but it's all linked. It says vaccination policy and the government's untold truth, and she talks about Munchausen's, the Gulf War syndrome, and shady vaccination policies and so on. Yeah, I try to find the article she wrote for us, but She was waiting for Vax Truth, but the article's disappeared off that now. It's quite a long one. But yeah, so the lady that I've got on tomorrow night knows all about this stuff, and I'm going to invite her on next Sunday. She runs a Facebook group about vaccination problems. So that should be interesting for a future show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember another lady in Canada called Sally Alcordia. Can't get back to her anymore. Don't know what's happened to her. But
Right.
she was a good friend of Christina's and mine. Bit like Dr. Carly was a good associate of yours.
Yeah.
What a strange world we live in, eh?
Oh, indeed. Well, Dr. Carly had a son named Joey, and his father was a Satanist, according to Dr. Carly. And I believe he was a Rosicrucian, which, like Freemasonry, it's a secret society that has been linked to Satanism. Not to suggest that all Freemasonry is satanic. I think there are lodges that are white lodges and those that are, shall we say, dark lodges. And anyway, Joey was being sexually abused by his pedophile father, according to Rebecca Carly. She tried to take this to court to gain custody of Joey. Unfortunately, the court ruled against her in favor of the father. And she was said to be delusional and was stripped of her medical license. So when I knew her, she would give people medical protocols and just simply called it advice. She was not able to actually treat people. It would have been illegal for her to have done so because she had lost her medical license. I don't know where Dr. Carly is today. I don't think she's active as a homeopathic doctor. I don't think she's active in talk radio. I don't think she's giving any podcasts. I think basically her career is over, and I have heard rumors which I'd rather not share because oftentimes it gives people the wrong impression or the wrong idea. But suffice to say, she's suffered depression and is not in a very good frame of being, let alone frame of mind. And it's a shame because I don't think that there's anything wrong with the woman's character. I think she's been badly slandered and misrepresented. And I would accuse the satanic network of that. You know, whether it's the Rosicrucian network associated with her husband or Freemasonry or a combination of the two. I don't know, but their influence is far and wide and virtually ubiquitous. And if they want to destroy someone, their career or their life, it's easy. It's a snap of the fingers.
Yeah, Wikipedia doesn't paint a very good picture. It's so depressing, I won't even bother. But in a nutshell, it says her license was removed because they felt she was mentally unfit to practice, and that's really all you need to know. But that's what Wikipedia says. You can't always believe.
She's far from delusional, and all you would have to do is listen to one of her radio programs to realize that she is very rational, analytical, and a solid thinker. She's not a vacuous person that has unsubstantiated conspiracy theory claims. She really does back up and support her claims with evidence, research. She's a rigorous researcher. And she did a great deal of research on the cause of the Gulf War syndrome, which she believes is caused by the vaccines that the soldiers were given before they went over to serve in Iraq. And I remember at the radio station in Florida where we were both doing shows, the Regal report came up in discussion, and Senator Regal issued this report, and I believe it's obfuscation and cover up for the true cause of the Gulf War syndrome. The Regal report seems to point the finger at the weapons of mass destruction, biochemical weapons that were deployed and used in the Iraq conflict, ostensibly by Saddam Hussein's forces. I don't believe that, and I think it's a willful and deliberate attempt to obscure the truth. Anyway, I've met Dr. Carly. I've spent time with her. I've driven around Melbourne, Florida with her in her car. I know the lady, and there's nothing delusional at all about this woman. She's very rational and a good researcher.
Yeah, she had a unique style, a bit of a mix between Maggie as well. She had a bit of Maggie in her.
Yeah, both women were brave and quite strong-willed and strong character types, right?
Definitely.
How is it that Maggie passed, Andy? What was it? Cancer? What happened to Maggie?
It was cancer, yeah.
Dear, what type?
I don't really know, to be honest. Because she had so many problems.
Right. Okay, who was it that introduced Ruby Akhtar to us? Because that's another story that people should know about. I wrote a book called Goodbye, Ruby Akhtar. And you can remember the Rolling Stone song, Goodbye Ruby Tuesday? That's why I
Yeah.
chose the title, Goodbye Ruby Akhtar.
She came our way via Neely, remember? Neely was the chemist that was discharged from a job because telling everybody that the drugs are all poisonous.
Right. Well, Ruby was from a Jewish family in Pakistan. That's the story that she claims. And she was, I guess the family was visited by this man from Northern Ireland. And somehow it was agreed to by her family that she would be taken by this man back to Northern Ireland. I can't imagine what kind of arrangement could have led to a family letting their daughter be taken away to a foreign country by a stranger. Were they paid? Were they such a poor family in this third world country of Pakistan that they were tempted by money? Perhaps. I guess we'll never know. That never came up in her story. But she went with this man to Northern Ireland, and according to her story, she was forced to participate in SRA rituals in a location in Northern Ireland. And she was kept in his home as a virtual prisoner and was able on one occasion to escape out the window in the middle of the night. And I don't think it was a particularly good situation for her. She was not properly dressed for the cold weather, presumably winter months, and she had to walk a great distance to the nearest police station in order to tell her story. There are police files related to her case. I have read some of the documents which Ruby shared with me. And so the conversations that took place when she was interviewed at the police station come from these transcripts, all of which are included in the novel. Now, I did a reading with a spiritualist who claimed that Ruby was the reincarnation of the Israelite princess Tia Tephi, who, with her brother, the famous prophet Jeremiah, arrived in Ireland in ancient times. King Zedekiah, during the Babylonian exile, recommended that Tia Tephi, the princess, be taken away to safety, and appealed to Jeremiah to be her guardian and take her to a place of safety. So they went to on their journey. They went to Egypt for a time, then to Gibraltar onward to Cornwall, England, and then a short sailing excursion up to Ireland. She settled in Ireland and married into the king line of the Irish. Now, it's a very interesting royal line, the Irish royal line, because it's a pharaonic royal line from Egypt, founded by the Pharaoh Concobar, who also came to Ireland in the period when the Roman occupation of Egypt was leading to the extermination of the royal and aristocratic lines, and so they had to flee for their safety, and Ireland was the only place it was outside of the Roman Empire area or territory of influence, and it was the only place of safe haven for the Egyptian royals to flee to. And so there they ended up. And the Pharaoh Concobar founded the Irish royal line. And by a strange twist of fate, a descendant of the first royal family of Ireland, the McNay family, actually lived with me for a period of 12 years. And he told me about the history of the Irish kings and how they fled Ireland when St. Patrick chased the snakes out of Ireland. The snakes refers to the serpent headdress of the Egyptian pharaohs, of course. So ostensibly the pharaonic line was chased out of Ireland, and they settled in Westmoreland, a county in Scotland, and changed their name from McNay to Neville. And so the Neville family is basically the Irish royal line, and the English houses of York and Lancaster made assiduous efforts to marry into the Neville royal family or aristocratic family. And so they did this in order to legitimize their claim to the throne through this oldest of the Irish king families. They talk about the divine right of kings. They do believe it, and they do take the peerage system very seriously, and how high up one's family is on the peerage system in terms of pedigree will show how royal your family actually is. Anyway, Ruby, whether she was the reincarnation of Tia Tephi, the prophecy of Tia Tephi is that she would one day reincarnate and bring justice not only to Ireland but to the world. Well, I don't know how successful Ruby would be in that regard, but I know she did have a wish to found shelters for women internationally. And the book that I wrote for her and published for her, all the royalties from that book were to go to her, and she was to use those royalties to found these shelters for abused women. I don't know what came of that project, and I don't know how well the book actually sold. But she said she saw copies of the book being held and read by people when she was out and about in London. I don't know if that's true, but that's what she claimed.
Yeah, I don't think the shelters got off anywhere.
No.
But I do think that she got her other dream, and that was to get a criminology degree.
Oh, is that
Because she
right?
wanted to help people in the same problems as she had.
I see. Well, anyway, in my book, Goodbye Ruby Akhtar, there is a long passage that explains the history of Tia Tefi. And so it's like a twin narrative. The story of Ruby's past life and her present life, and how the two lives intertwine and connect. So, yeah, as Andy says, you can see some of my novels and books on Amazon, and some of them are still available and some of them not. But a good example of a book that is available is my book on COVID-19. The science of the COVID-19 pandemic is what the title of the book is. And I believe it's available for free on Amazon Kindle. So why not? It's not going to cost you anything, and it's certainly going to benefit you, because I covered the science of the COVID-19 pandemic in a way that no other book on the market does. It looks at the little known science of COVID, the virus, the vaccine, and the pandemic lockdown response. And it examines all three from a scientific point of view. A lot of it taken from peer-reviewed science papers on these various aspects of the COVID-19 pandemic. So the mRNA so-called vaccine, which is not a vaccine, it's a next generation concept of a vaccine. It's supposed to offer a prophylaxis protection against the infectious disease COVID-19, but it's been shown to be an abject failure as a prophylaxis against the infectious disease. It doesn't stop an individual from being infected, and it doesn't stop that individual from passing on the infection to others. So if you look at it, in those terms. It's a complete failure as an antidote to this disease. And in addition, it's not even a vaccine in the traditional sense of inoculation or immunization against an infectious disease. It's a gene therapy. And the synthetic mRNA, messenger ribonucleic acid, that will program changes to the DNA. And so what did those changes entail? Well, for one, it was designed to program the cells to produce spike proteins, to turn the cells of the body into factories for manufacturing spike proteins that were like the spike proteins found on the outside of the virus itself. And by doing so, it was supposed to program the immune system to be resistant to the virus spike proteins, to prevent the virus from entering through the spike proteins, to fight it at its, entry point and prevent it from spreading. That's ostensibly what the purpose of this mRNA vaccine was. But unfortunately, it resulted in autoimmune disease vaccine injury. Insofar as the spike proteins spread throughout the body of the recipient, and many of them embedded themselves in the walls of the blood vessels. And so the antibodies and T cells would home in on the spike protein and attack it, and that would inflame the blood vessel wall. And so blood platelets would swarm to the site, and a blood clot would soon emerge. Now, those who died of the adverse reaction to the COVID-19 mRNA vaccine, the autopsy reports showed that many of them died of blood clotting, and some of the blood clots that were removed were horrifically long, like about a foot long. Now, obviously that would cause something like a cardiac arrest emergency. But a lot of the spike proteins also embedded themselves in the healthy tissue of the heart, and this led to another autoimmune disease problem called myocarditis. So some also, in some cases, embedded themselves in the brain, and this caused, you guessed it, strokes in some cases. Some of these spike proteins also embedded themselves in the lung tissue and caused harm in the lungs. So these people, many of them died from an array of autoimmune disease-related symptoms. And another adverse reaction was Guillain-Barré syndrome. Oh dear. So that's just, some of the science related to the vaccine. The book also identified the fact that those with a high ratio of Neanderthal or Denisovan genetics in their genome were more susceptible to COVID-19, more susceptible to catching it, and more susceptible to succumbing to it. And apparently this is because there was a deficiency in their immune system, those with a high ratio of Neanderthal and Denisovan genes, to defend against the spike protein in the coronavirus. And so they were more susceptible to its infectious nature, and were more susceptible to dying from the disease. And so I thought, why is it that, those with a high ratio of Neanderthal and their ancient cousin, the Denisovan species, why would those people that have that characteristic in their genetics, in their genetic profile, why is it that they would be more susceptible? Well, I've explained why, but was the virus programmed because they used gain-of-function technology, gain-of-function research to create a more virulent and more pathogenic version of the coronavirus in a lab in Wuhan, China, with funding that came from the National Institute of Health, presided over by Anthony Fauci, and a sub-grant agency called EcoHealth was the means of transferring the money to the Wuhan lab. No doubt in order to hide or conceal the source of funding, the NIH, NIAID. All right, so I speculate that it's part of the eugenics program, and the virus chews at the low end of the evolutionary tree. And so certain undesirable segments of the human population were meant to be eliminated. I also suggested that the reason for the Hindu caste system might be that in ancient times, the Aryan invaders realized that the local Dravidian population, certain segments of that population, were susceptible to infectious diseases, perhaps coronaviruses, and were not only susceptible to catching these diseases, but also dying from them. And so to protect their caste, the Brahmins, who were the Aryan invaders, decided that they had to restrict their caste from breeding with the lower caste local Hindu populations in order to reduce their susceptibility to disease. So this is some of the science that the book delves into, and you're certainly not going to learn about any of that in any mainstream publication.
Yeah, and it's Kindle free and it's UK 963 to buy. Wonder where they get the 963 from.
I don't know.
But 13 Canadian.
All right. So, what do you want to delve into now, Andy?
Well, we've had just over an hour, if you're okay with that. Been an interesting insight to books and SRA, and just one final thing.
Yeah.
Don't know if you're following the wars, but Israel's given up the ceasefire because Gaza wouldn't give the dead bodies back, and they've now launched attacks. And in the other war, Trump has told Ukraine, accept Putin's terms or let Putin destroy Ukraine. So we're on a happy life as usual.
Well, that's certainly better than the alternative, which is to supply the Ukraine with Tomahawk missiles, which are clearly requiring American satellite guidance systems, which Russia would view as an attack from the United States as much as the Ukraine. So it's a prescription for World War III, like that, like bingo.
Yeah,
like,
he's already had a little dig at Putin, saying, I've got 1,200 tomahawks I could give to your enemy. And then he laughed. And then Putin said, oh, let's meet again. all Putin wants is the Donbass region. But then again, that's all he wanted last time, Crimea and so on. So, yeah, it's pretty bad. I wouldn't like to be in a war.